Hello, everybody, and happy Friday. Welcome to a new episode of What's the Buzz. Today, I'm really excited to welcome a good friend of mine and colleague from up in Pennsylvania, Louis Kassa, to today's program. Lou, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's really an honor and pleasure to be here today.
Well, I'm excited for our conversation today. For those who don't know, Louis Kassa is CEO of the Hepatitis B Foundation, which is a Blumberg Institute, and also the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center. So I'm excited to dive into sharing more about those different organizations and the roles you have. Lou, if we could take just a second, I want to give our sponsor a little credit and do a little housekeeping for everybody. So for anybody tuning in for the first time today, What's the Buzz is our opportunity to talk to ecosystem builders, right? So this industry that we're in, making medicines, getting it to patients, takes a village. And people like Lou and a lot of our other guests are working hard for company creation, company support. So this is our opportunity a couple times a month to showcase the work that they're doing to build our ecosystems. And we're sponsored by a real legitimate ecosystem builder, CRB. I know they have an office up there in Philadelphia. If you look around any of these ecosystems, they've probably built half of the labs and manufacturing facilities that you see out there. So CRB is the physical ecosystem builder, building the infrastructure and places that we make our medicines. So I want to thank CRB for sponsoring these programs month after month for us. Also, for everybody tuning in, a couple key events to keep in mind. In Philadelphia, coming up on October 1st, we're doing a featured event, downtown Philly with Wexford CIC, Women in Leadership in Life Sciences. It's going to be a great event. Keep an eye on our calendar for that. If you're in the Maryland area, September 29th, we're really excited for an opportunity. Lou, this is kind of up in your bailiwick. The Henry Jackson Foundation is launching a brand new military medicine incubator focused exclusively on dual-use technologies and helping them come out, launch companies here in Maryland around military health and military medicine. So we're excited. We're hosting an event down there to really showcase the launch of their incubator, and they'll be announcing soon some of their first cohort. So those are two events I want everyone to keep in mind, as well as the TEDCO Expo on October 21st. I don't know if you've ever been, Lou. Great event, well worth taking the train down for. Over 1,000 entrepreneurs get together with support ecosystem players, a lot of investors. It's a full jam-packed day, so I encourage everybody to keep an eye out for our calendar for that. So that's my ecosystem building start to kick us off, Lou. And now I will turn it over to you, because today's program is really all about talking about PABC and the work you do at Blumberg. So would you mind starting us off, Lou? Just give us an introduction to yourself and a little bit about your organization.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. So, it's a little complex, all these moving parts we have. And I like to, explain to everyone, it all starts with Hepatitis B Foundation. I mean, that's our founder. It's the first nonprofit we have, Tim Block, Joan Block, and the Whitties, Jane and Paul Whitty, founded the organization over 35 years ago. It's really about public policy, advocacy. There's 300 million people with hepatitis B, and there's no cure. It's very impactful. I think we get about 2 to 3 million visitors a year on our website. Our second nonprofit is the Blumberg Institute. That's research-based. Barry Blumberg discovered the hepatitis B virus in the early 60s, won the Nobel Prize, and most people don't realize he actually worked here in Doylestown during the latter part of his life. We had a Nobel laureate on site here in the small little borough of Doylestown. We've got about 60 or 70 researchers. We mainly focus on hepatitis B research, liver-related diseases, but over the last few years, we've branched out into yellow fever and a few other platforms. The Blumberg Institute manages the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center. So the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center has been around since 2006. It's one of the oldest incubators in the country. Lab Central, just to give a frame of reference, was, I think, 2014 or so. So we've been here. We've had over 9 IPOs, $3 billion worth of company value created. It's really one of the largest incubators with 58 companies in the country, 150,000 square feet on 14 acres. And over the last, I'd say, 5 years or so, we've been ranked consistently in the top 10, from number 3 to number 7 to number 10. And I think it's because of our unique formula and model, which I'll get into in a little bit. And then finally, in 2022, We opened up B Labs, which is a partnership with Brandywine Realty Trust. That's located in the Sierra Center. We replicated our model, and we've got a great team working down there with about 25 companies. Our whole portfolio is closing on 80 companies. And then lastly, Chris, because it is a lot, in 2020, I helped co-found the Hatch Bio Fund, which is a venture capital fund, $50 million to help invest in early stage companies within our region.
You're not kidding.
It's a lot.
But so for those who can follow that, like there's a clear value chain that I think that you just walk through, and so maybe we can start unpacking that a little bit. So you said it all starts with Hepatitis B Foundation and Blumberg. So at the heart, you're focused on research and cures, and that is that part of what really drives it all, like really kind of getting new innovation out, getting new cures out?
Yeah, I mean, all our entities, and as we expand across the country too, and again, that will benefit the work we're doing here in PA. And, in a few minutes, hopefully we'll talk about, what we really want to do and double down in the state of Pennsylvania. But, each incubator is the home. We'll have a hepatitis B and Blumberg presence. And again, any success we have from the VC fund or from the incubators goes back to cure hepatitis B. That's really what this is all about. So it all works together towards it. We're all mission driven.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'd love to, start with PABC. So you're in Doylestown,
yeah,
right? Which is about an hour outside of Philadelphia.
It's about 35 miles northeast of Pennsylvania,
30.
Philly.
Okay. So, tell us about PABC and Doylestown. So it's actually, you and I have talked about that. There's actually a lot of pharma executives around that area. So Doylestown, you might not see it as a come up in the gen rankings as a thing, but collectively, there's a lot of talent and executive talent within half an hour, 45 minutes from where you guys are.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a unicorn. We really shouldn't exist, basically, because most incubators are by major university hubs and major clusters. We're out here, as I said, 34 miles away from Philadelphia, but this is really our sweet spot. We're almost dead set in the middle of the pharma belt from North New Jersey down to Philadelphia. So within 100 miles of where I'm sitting here in Doylestown is 80% of all U.S. pharma. That to us, that's really one of the key ingredients of our model. We are a speed to market model. And how do we get speed to market? We have just unbelievable resources within a stone's throw of world-class scientists. We've had 8 FDA scientists here in Doylestown on site, from Lasker Award winner Mike Sophia, who won that for his hepatitis C work, to the discovery of Eliquis, Topamax. And we have that scientific talent along with the pharma executives. So most people may or may not know, a lot of the pharma executives don't live in Boston, San Diego, San Francisco. They live here in this little corner of Pennsylvania, mostly for tax purposes, but also for access to North New Jersey and Boston. Alex Gorski lives down the road, former J&J. Kent Frazier's been here from Merck on my board. We have the EVP of Merck, ex-EVP Tony Ford Hutchinson, the CEO of Novartis, Wayne Yetter. So having all this talent in our backyard really allows our model and gives the companies here access to people who know how to commercialize. And that's really what our incubator is about. It's taking these science projects and making them commercial entities.
So how do you do that? You mentioned your model. So could you tell us a little bit, like what is the model that you guys have operated under that, and how, maybe talk a little bit about some of the success that's produced.
Yeah, and I have to give a lot of credit, or most of the credit, to Tim Block. I mean, he is that rare scientist who is also an entrepreneur and has a business mindset, where he decided way back in the early 2000s that, we have this public policy advocacy organization. Now I want to do the research to find a cure. Now I need a building to do the research in. And he was seeing all these technologies coming through. At that time, he was on Delaware Valley College at the time, not university. And he was seeing these companies be formed from the technologies there and leave the state and go elsewhere. So the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center was basically created by a grant that Dr. Block wrote, and Governor Schweiker on his last day gave an $8 million grant that basically led to this creation. So our model, again, I came in 2014. I was in behavioral health for 20 years. I didn't know anything about incubation. I was a COO for a national company. I knew how to be a COO, but I didn't know how to incubate and what our model was trying to accomplish. It took me some time, but when you start something new, what do? I went out and I went to every incubator I could find in the country. I'd be on vacation and my family would think I was crazy. I'm going to go visit the North Shore incubator. I'm going to go here. And what I found was what Dr. Block has, organically created really didn't exist in the country. There were some components of it, but what I was able to do, and I felt like I was put here to do, was connect these dots for this model and to lead to replication. And the model's pretty simple, but a little steps involved. One, it's all about companies, about the science. You cannot just be first come, first serve. Company selection is vital to incubator success. If you just take any company that walks through your front door, you're going to have a revolving door of labs and space and issues of dealing with that. So we have, because we're a research institute, because we have so many companies here and expertise, we have a science process of here's your application. I show the application to other members here. What do they think? Will they co-collaborate? Once the company's in, we don't kick them out, which is another ingredient that separates us from other incubators. Most incubator models, and they have great models out there, it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, you graduate. Here, because we want to speed the market and we want to have a know-how network, we will hold on to companies as long as they co-collaborate, and they will have that knowledge that they can give to the newer companies about accelerating the science and moving forward. So co-collaboration is our second ingredient. How can we get these companies together, get them to co-collaborate? And that leads into some of our other ingredients, like having academic programs on site where the students help out with the early stage companies. It's a mutual benefit for both of the parties. The students are getting great experiential learning. The companies are getting help in the labs that maybe they couldn't afford. It goes into our common equipment model where we have as much equipment as you can have in an incubator. We don't charge for it because as a nonprofit, we believe it's our purpose to be here to make the scientists focus on the science by not upcharging for equipment. So when you do apples to apples, the other incubators, you get a lot more bang for your buck for our model. And then finally, we do company creation. Every year we spin out 4 or 5 companies, either from Blumberg, licensing it out from other universities or CHOP or research institutes, using our access to C-suite and then spitting them out into the incubator.
That's incredible. So if I could, let me just try to pull that together. So application process, science driven is kind of the core. And something else that you said that was really interesting. So your members weigh in. So this isn't an executive decision or like just for real estate, but your members are weighing in. Like, would they be a good member in this community? Do they fit and complement? Is that kind of
and again, there's different spaces that we have, and I think that's another point. You want a diverse ecosystem. And I know when Dr. Block first started this, it was pretty much a moonshot for hepatitis B. Over the years, it's diversified, and you want to have medicinal chemists, biologists. We have up here a lot of small molecule drug translational research, but we also have diagnostics, vaccines, medical devices. B Labs has really turned into almost a cell and gene therapy moonshot. There's a lot of thematic because in Philadelphia, that's the demographics. But I had a company, to give you an example, that was doing antibodies out of California. I passed around the application to usually it's about 2 or 3 CEOs here who I think that they may have some interest. And one of the CEOs came back and said, listen, get these guys in here ASAP. We can collaborate with them. And lo and behold, they ended up collaborating and having, some success moving forward.
That's awesome. So part of that process is purposeful diversification or purposeful kind of within the community.
Yeah, you want to have, and I hear the story all the time. Sometimes we have some pharma executives. They've been out of labs for a while. I forgot how to use this type of microscope. They go across the hall. You may have somebody going, I really need a medicinal chemist who maybe has some computational experience. Well, here you go. Go knock on this door. So having that all kind of under one roof, it's like one-stop shopping.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, and that's what I think is I don't do it on vacation like you.
I've only done it once for the record.
As an entrepreneur, I'm already in the doghouse half the time, so I can't take my vacations away. But I go to a lot of incubators, as you know, and I love B+ Labs too because it's right off the train station. So anybody that's tuning in from New Jersey, New York, or Maryland, like great place to plug into, if you have executives in those other areas. But I love, like, as a student of this is really interesting to me. So it's not just an incubation phase where you're focused. You do have a process for scaling these companies, but you're fostering a community. You're fostering this is an actively engaged place where companies are supporting each other. You're supporting them. So it's a cohesive, strategically developed community.
Well, as BioBuzz's recent Community Builder recipient award, yeah, it's when I explain to if I'm looking for a new business development opportunity, or we're talking about incubators, I go, we build communities. We're a nonprofit. And one of the first things I did after I started in 2014 was, there's this tenant landlord dynamic that, to be quite honest, that's how both incubators and most incubators run. You have to sign a lease, right? I said to my team and to the community here, we're getting rid of the T word. That's how we say it. We're not a tenant. You're not a tenant. You're a community member. We're not a landlord. Technically we are, but we're part of the community. We're here. Our mission is to cure hepatitis B, but from the incubator perspective, our mission is company success. Our teams and B Labs team, if you talk to any of the companies in B Labs, they will tell you what Matthew Burkhardt and his team does is beyond compare. They'll climb mountains for those companies there to help them out. And we do the same thing here in Doylestown. And I think that ethos and that nonprofit kind of roll up your sleeves, I think it rubs off on the companies, and you have that sense of community. I mean, we do blood drives, food drives, we do community day where we go out and do yard work. Like, that's pretty much some of the components of what makes the community strong.
That's great. And I will share, just from my experience, I've talked to a lot of landlords, right, or a lot of incubators, and they'll say, we've got tenants, and but we don't have community like that. I hear that specific thing, and so kudos to that ethos that you've created up there. And I can see it again. I've been up to B Labs quite a bit as I visit Philadelphia, and there really is a very engaging culture there. So continue to build on this. I want to touch back on the success you've had. So you're a company creator, you're speed to market focused. What does that equate to? Like, what, I know you mentioned several Nobel laureates who've been in through there, and several, so based on this model and your community approach, how does that compare? Like, what are some success metrics or things that you look at?
One of the things, again, it comes back to keep it simple. Are the companies moving forward? I think, and I've been doing this for 11 years, and I read the statistic once that, 1 in 20 early stage biotech companies are successful. Like, that's pretty, those aren't great odds. And what's really interesting about our model, and I can compare it to Doylestown, B Labs has been around since 2022, but we really have had very few failures. I can count on one hand how many companies have gone under. And I think that's due to company selection, but I think it's due to, part of our job is, if the companies get stuck, get them unstuck. So when I try to look at success, are they moving the science forward? Are the companies getting what they need? And one of the things I'm really proud of is that B Labs and here at the PABC, we have these networks, and bringing B Labs on board and replicating that model, I learned a lot. We've never done it before. And, probably like the hardest, using a McDonald's example, probably the hardest thing for McDonald's was the second McDonald's, right? For when you're doing an incubator, we learned a lot. It took 6 months just to get the operations down and the airflow and the equipment and all those. It's like having an infant, and you have to really grow in stages. You can't just open up an incubator and you're going to be like here at PABC 10 years down the road. So looking at some of these metrics, but the network, and Matthew Burkhardt, to his credit, when we brought him on board, he brought to our team the experience of being in San Francisco and Boston, the experience of how important VC is to the model, and added that ingredient. And I think now today, as you and I were talking prior, this is a nuclear winner for our business. It's very difficult. I think most people may not know the situation with what's going on in the government, with the cuts to the NIH potentially, grants being frozen, VC sitting on the sideline, universities being really impacted by cuts and frozen grants. It's tough. So having these networks and having people that you can go to help the companies get through these hard times, I think that's paramount to how we measure success and how we keep things going.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. That nuclear winter, I think there's a lot of people probably shaking their heads right now listening to this, resonating. It's been tough and brutal for a lot of people. And we always say, like, now more than ever, you need to lean into your community. You need to lean into your networks, and collectively we need to support each other. Now more than ever, because there's headwinds, not just scientific headwinds of getting your technology to work, but everything you just mentioned. I think the way through it is together. And I also think we talked about this a little bit too. Like, a lot of layoffs have been plaguing this industry, and I think the only way out of that is to create more companies. Like, big pharma is not going to absorb all these people. Like, everyone needs to be in a company creation mindset, or not everybody, but that's what's going to help.
I mean, you preach to the choir, and I am standing on top of the mountaintop here. If we had one in Doylestown, the only way through this right now is company creation. We need to focus on two things. One, in Pennsylvania, and I know where you are in Maryland, you guys have a pipeline. These academic institutions still have the technologies. They're on the shelf. They're there. They're creating it. While they've taken hits, what can we do? And what's going on with the national environment, I think there's a great opportunity to pivot towards working with these academic institutions, research institutions, getting teams in to look at the technologies, getting a funding mechanism to seed them, and company create, and doing things, like that you're well versed in, Chris, and finding the talent, matching it with the technology. We have the C-suite talent here in the pharma belt, but we could be doing 10 to 15 companies with the right mindset and funding. And what I'm working on right now is I've had the last 7 months or so to meet with pretty much every major university within our reach. They're all talking and open-minded to this company creation model. I think what we need now is the funding mechanism. Is it going to be the state of Pennsylvania? As you said, pharma, are they going to step to the plate? Is VC going to come in and help out? But if we had that funding mechanism, we will create our own pipeline.
Yeah, well said. I'm excited to see how that continues to develop. It's absolutely so important and needed. Could you talk about, while we're talking about like these broader topics, what else are you working on across? So this is a great initiative you're working on. You and I've talked in the past about some other kind of statewide things that you're focused on. Could you talk a little bit about how you're trying to influence and impact some life science across the state through kind of the lens and the model you built?
I think and our legislators are so supportive. We get great bipartisan support. The governor has mentioned that life sciences is one of his initiatives, and I'm going to keep reminding the governor and reminding those around that yes, if we're going to make it an initiative, then we really need to double down on PA, and that's what we're doing here at the Blumberg Institute and PABC. We would love to have, as the governor mentioned, a triangle with Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and State College. We have a huge meeting with Penn State in I think October to talk more about how we can help them with their technologies. I'm going out to Pittsburgh, and then at the Blumberg Institute, our research institute, we just brought on Mike Sophia, who won the Lasker Award. We have an opportunity to bring on a director of innovation and entrepreneurism. I was very fortunate to hire somebody who worked at Hopkins and UMass to work with our scientists and say, hey, grants may or may not be there in the future, but what kind of commercial opportunities do you have with your research? Should we license this out? Should we spin it out? Should we find a commercial partner? Is this something we could do a subaward on? So, you have to change your thought process. And I really think Pennsylvania, being fourth in NIH funding, fifth in patents, has so much opportunity with the right support to even go to the next level. And people have heard me talk before. I always complain that, we're always 5th through 10th in the life sciences rank. And there's 3 or 4 big ones. And I know Maryland, you guys are in front of us, so please don't mention it. I'm very competitive. We should be in the top 5. We should be in the top 3 with all the talent that we have, all the technologies. And it's just a matter of connecting the dots to get there.
Well, if you build the triangle, then you can be a top 3 or 2 with the triangle. I mean, you bring in Pitt, I think it's probably, there's so much complementary things happening in Pittsburgh with AI and robotics. And, I know they have Bioforge out there and a few things. MedTech is strong. I mean, you've got the recipe, like you said, you've got the assets, the NIH funding, building that connective tissue could really kind of really create some catalytic
Yeah, I mean,
activity.
the other thing too, we need to start thinking, well, we're huge supporters of cell and gene therapy. We need to broaden that under the life sciences umbrella. And we're looking at, and think about Pennsylvania, animal health, ag sci, as you mentioned, AI. We need to, let Pennsylvanians know it's not just the two corners of the state that can have life sciences impact. GSK made a huge investment in Lancaster for manufacturing. We can do a lot. I mean, we've got two of the top five universities, Pitt and Penn. You add Penn State in, which is huge, and then you look around what Geisinger's doing. You look at around some of the other things down in Hershey. It's all there, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I know there's been a lot of headwinds out of the government, but some positive things that are out there in the horizon is the strategic API reserve, right? So, the greater Pennsylvania area is a dead center for pharma, right? So, those strategic API reserve, that if that orange shores, great positioning for some really good commercial,
Yeah,
opportunities.
and again, I think two things would change the landscape, and again, the state being a number one, and can they make an investment similar to other states? When you look at Texas's CPRIT fund, Mass Bio, New Jersey, Maryland has your tax incentive. I think early stage investment you can get like 50%. I don't know all the details, but something of that level of investment could be the tipping point for us moving things forward in life sciences. And then again, with a lot of the clusters, outside of Boston and San Francisco, it's the VC. And that's what we're trying to do with the Hatch Bio Fund. Lorenzo Pellegrina is really, he wants to make this the impactful fund for the greater Philadelphia region. And we've made 5 investments so far. And we're hoping that this fund is very successful so we can launch Fund 2, which would be a lot larger of a fund and, hopefully have a lot more LPs involved too.
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting. I was at the Maryland Tech Council's event last week, and they're a good partner of ours. They do a good job of bringing the state together. They had a panel with CEO of Mass Bio and Virginia Bio, and they were talking about ecosystems and talking about these things. So some of the things you mentioned, just to kind of iterate, strong state level top down support is so critical, and not just airwave music, but putting money together to show and build confidence. And that does bring investors, because investors want to go where there's stability and confidence. And I think that was the part of the role the state needs to signal to investors, that there's stability here from a state, whether it's regulation, whether it's investment or whatnot. That was a big part of the conversation that was had. So to your point, the work that you're doing and the work that the Shapiro administration is doing to invest, I think that could go a long way. And it sounds like you're right on the front line.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, if you go to Boston and you know what Mass Bio is doing on the investment side in their fund, if I'm VC, I'm almost getting another dollar for a dollar I put in. I mean, that's a huge statement. The other thing too, which I'd like to see more, and I have to give the city of Philadelphia a lot of credit, Rebecca Grant especially, she's part of our community. She's at events. When I go down to North Carolina Triangle, I'll go to an event and I'll be sitting next to the Secretary of Commerce. There'll be somebody from the state representative, this and that. So having our federal and state officials in our community, being part of our events. I've been at a few events on a panel, and I'll say, how many people here are from the government and are from pharma? And there won't be too many people raising their hands. And I think Pennsylvania, if for this to work, we're going to need all components of our industry to pull together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, as you mentioned, the right ingredients are there. I'm really impressed. Again, I appreciate you sharing this secret sauce and the model of what you've done, because it is quite incredible. And even the positioning in the middle of the pharma belt, it's incredible to see what you're doing. And to go back to decomplicating it, it starts with a foundation and ends with a investment fund. You've created a full value chain for company creation and getting it to market. And what I love, again, as you know me, a community guy, I love that it's grounded in community. I think you're a good case study on how, focusing on community and strategic community can really be a good business model.
No, Chris, I appreciate the kind words. And again, all credit goes back to our founder, Dr. Block, the team we have here. And if anybody is interested in becoming part of our community, thanks to the current environment, we actually have some space. So I have to do my little plug here. But yeah, not a whole lot of space. But yeah, we are, if anybody is interested in, any bench space, office space, you can contact me. That'd be great.
That's great. So applications are
Yes,
open.
they are.
Yeah, that's great. Well, this has been great, Lou. I really appreciate the conversation and you sharing with everybody today. Any closing words as we
No,
wrap
again,
up?
I think you hit on a very good point. Like, we're all in this together. I think people who are in this industry generally are doing it for good reasons, and that's to help out, patients and to come up with cures for diseases and, chronic illness. So, during tough times like this, we got to rally around each other and, try to get through to the other side, and it will happen. These things go in cycles, and when we come out of this, it's going to be, they've said there's been a few biotech recessions before, and at the end of each one, it comes out like a rocket ship, and, we just got to get to that inflection point.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like, and we will, and I think, as we come out of that inflection point, you guys have a recipe that can help even more companies grow, right? So, a lot of advice that you often hear is, the downturn is when you build, so the upturn you can grow. And it sounds like you've got a great foundation that you built, and spring comes after winter, even a nuclear winter. So, so let's hope that's right around the corner.
Chris, thank you, BioBus too. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Lou. Appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in today. We'll be back in 2 more weeks with another episode of What's the Buzz. Until then, have a wonderful Friday. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the weekend.